郭 Sir 嘅左手邊分別有警察公共關係科高級警司江永祥，同埋有組織罪案及三合會調查科高級警司李桂華。而喺郭 Sir 嘅右手邊分別有港島總區交通部執行及管制組總督察蕭奕琪。
Organized crime and tried bureau. And to Mr. Kwok's right, we have Mr. Aubrey Siu, Chief Inspector, Traffic Hong Kong Island, Mr. Zheng Fan Hon, Superintendent Operations Hong Kong Island, Mr. Wang Weishen, Senior Superintendent Operations. Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about the behavior of rioters over the past weekend and also the arrangement for the various public activities in the next few days. Now, in the past few days, rioters and their supporters continue to wreak havoc at different shopping malls and disrupted social order through online appeal. They stormed many shopping malls, including Landmark North and Telford Plaza. They went all over the place. They didn't go there to shop, but rather they wanted to prevent those shopping malls from doing any business. And on Saturday night at Landmark North, the police were pursuing a suspect who assaulted police officers. You could all see that he was putting up strong resistance, and in the process he tried to snatch gun. His finger was already on the trigger. There could be a misfire any time. Then we acted on intelligence. We deployed officers to various shopping malls to prevent rioters from damaging the shops. Imagine if there are no police officers there to enforce law. Then do you want shopping malls to become a lawless place where rioters could do whatever they want, and then you can't even enjoy shopping together with your family, including young children? Do you want to see that? We can see that there was some eating establishment where the rioters went to cause disruption. They scattered condiment all over the place. They didn't accept the shop didn't put up with the behavior. And then early in the morning, then the petrol bombs were hurled at the shops. And so this is a kind of revenge similar to the tactic adopted by the strike gangs. And then we noticed that the people are calling on people to gather and stir up trouble tomorrow night. They want to force the police to fire tear gas, and this is to achieve their evil purpose of causing public panic. And then some rioters asked people to bring along the umbrella so that they could be used to cover up their acts of mob assaulting people and so on. And then they also encourage people to use petrol bombs and smoke disc and other weapons to attack people and shops with different opinions. And the police strongly condemned this rioters. They're using tried gang style of tactics to silence people. The police will continue to take active law enforcement action to protect the public. Their evil means purposes will not be achieved. And but then at the same time, the police tries to allow the public to voice their views in a peaceful manner, so they could take part in a lawful assembly. So we have already issued a notice of no objection no objection to the Civil Human Rights Front for organizing a procession on 1st of January. But then we noticed that there was a batch of posters issued in the name of the CHRF, inciting others to take revenge, to carry out so-called renovation all over the city, and so on. But we have already sought clarification with the CHRF. They denied that this was their publicity materials, and we welcome the fact that the CHRF has distanced themselves from violence. We appeal to CHRF not to cover up or glorify such violence acts. because the so-called registration is just vandalism. And then in the past few days, we see various unlawful activities being carried out at shopping malls. Many young people were arrested. We know that young people are not yet mature, so they could be easily mobilized to do something. So we must warn those with ulterior motives not to take advantage of young people, because young people may not know that what they do could ruin their future. And then on the 27th, 3 young people younger than 14-year-old were throwing objects down to the ground level from podium at Shamshui Po. The police arrived, and then knives and air rifles, which were fully loaded, were found on them. And then on the 29th, 3 young children aged 13 and 14 drove away a public van, and that would pose a serious danger to other road users. It shows that young people no longer observe the law as they do. The police has been in active communication with various groups to provide assistance to young people. We have been working with different organizations to take part in the community support service scheme operated by the Social Welfare Department. There are 5 designated NGOs providing support service to arrested young people. The scheme already covers arrested young people under the age of 18. With the consent of the young people and their parents or guardians, we would refer these young people to receive services from some social service organizations. There will be professional counseling and support for them. We hope that through these various referral services, we could work together to guide young people to comply with the law, so they won't regret if they should make a mistake. And then last weekend, we arrested 34 people, including 31 men and 3 women, aged between 13 and 50. The offences included loitering, possession of tools that could be used for illegal purposes, unlawful assembly, obstruction of police, assaulting police, and so on. And we would also like to make a clarification. Recently, a person who made a complaint to the capo claimed that he received a letter from police saying that he must give evidence within 30 days, otherwise the investigation will terminate. The police must clarify that such an allegation is not correct. The case referred to in the letter is not the case of complaint lodged by the complainant, but rather it refers to another case. But because of personal privacy, we are not at liberty to say too much. But we could clarify that that particular case has nothing to do with the recent public protests. The capo has not indicated that we would end the investigation. We stress that we will follow the established mechanism to follow up on any complaint case, and we will not resort to any other means to try to end the investigation deliberately. And that case will also be under the IPCC for their scrutiny. Now,
thank you, Mr. Guo. And on New Year's Eve at Causeway Bay, Lan Kwai Fong, Wan Chai North, and near Central Pier, there would be special traffic arrangements. I would first talk about the traffic arrangements in Causeway Bay. You can look at the road section in red in Causeway Bay. From 4 p.m. till 12 midnight, it will be converted into a pedestrian zone, including East Point Road and part of Great George Street. And depending on the situation of the crowd at that time, if necessary, the road section in orange would also be sealed off, including part of Great George Street, Sugar Street, Kingston Street, Canning Street, the northbound lane of the Taihang flyover, and the southbound and northbound direction of Gloucester Street, and outside the green section, and that is the lay-by near the typhoon shelter, If necessary, the lay-by will be suspended from 9 p.m. that night. At Lan Kwai Fong, the special traffic arrangements would be implemented in 2 phases. In the first phase, starting from 2 p.m. till 6 a.m. the following day, the orange section would be sealed off, including part of Drake Street and Wellington Street, Lan Kwai Fong, Onan Lane, and Wo On Lane. In the second phase, if necessary, starting from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. the next day, the section in blue would be sealed off, including part of Drake Street, Stanley Street, Queens Road Central, and Lower Albert Road. And along Wan Chai North, from 9 p.m. in the evening, depending on the crowd conditions at that time, the sections in green would be sealed off, including the Expo Drive to the south of Fleming Street, Expo Drive Central, and Expo Drive East, Lechco Road. And in the central area, near the Central Pier, depending on crowd conditions, the roads marked in green could be sealed off, including Tin Hua Avenue, Edinburgh Place, Manford Street, Man Kwong Street, and the Central Pier terminus. And 5 minutes before the countdown, that is 11:55 p.m., depending on crowd conditions, and if necessary, we would also seal off part of Manpo Street and Manmo Street. That is the section in red. And near Expo Drive, while the Wan Chai North will no longer be accessible via the Central Wan Chai bypass, while the westbound exit would also be limited. And the eastbound traffic at Connaught Road Central must enter the bypass in order to reach North Point, so please do use other roads, and the traffic arrangement would be restored after the crowds are dispersed. Thank you. On the 1st of January 2020, there will be a major public order event on Hong Kong Island, and I would like to issue some reminders. In the afternoon on the 1st of January, there will be 2 parts to the public order event, including the public meeting that will take place at the central lawn of Victoria Park, as well as a public procession that would begin from Victoria and end at the Chater Road pedestrian area. With regards to these public order events, the police issued a letter of no objection to the organizer yesterday. As with the past, when necessary, at Victoria Park, Tin Hau, and Causeway Bay, the police would adopt crowd control measures. We also urge participants to these events to use public transport to reach Victoria Park. Meanwhile, the public should also follow instructions from police officers at the site as well as inspectors from the organizer in order to enter Victoria Park in an orderly manner and take part in the subsequent march. In terms of the route of the march, the police would open up the entire westbound lane along the route of the march and part of the tram routes. The eastbound lane of the route would be reserved for emergency vehicles as well as the eastbound traffic. Apart from the above arrangements, the police would also like to issue a few key reminders. First of all, the police has all along respected the rights for the public to take part in assemblies and processions, and our policy has been to facilitate peaceful public order events. Meanwhile, we are also obliged to ensure public safety, public order, as well as safeguarding the rights and freedom of other people. Meanwhile, the organizer is also obliged to assist the police in managing these public order events. We expect the organizer to follow the conditions laid out in the letter of no objection, to arrange 300 or more inspectors to help manage the events. In case of contingencies or violent clashes, both the organizer and the inspectors are obliged to help the police disperse the crowds or evacuate the crowd to ensure that all participants can leave the scene in an orderly and safe manner. When the venue of the procession or assembly is no longer safe for the sake of public order and safety, the public might dismiss the public order event. Therefore, if the police request a dismissal of the events, we expect the organizer and the inspectors to help the police in urging the participants to leave immediately. You can see that in the past months, many large-scale public order events were hijacked by a number of people with ulterior motives, and many peaceful events became or turned into violent clashes or even riots. And these and such irresponsible acts have breached the rule of law in Hong Kong and deprived the rights of others to take part in lawful assemblies and processions. So with regards to the coming public order events, I urge protesters to stop using violence. Meanwhile, I hope the Hong Kong public would say no to violence and stop condoning, harboring, or glorifying violence, and they should not turn a blind eye on violence as well. The police would not tolerate any violence, and we would take out decisive enforcement action in order to safeguard the lives and properties of the public. Finally, once again, I urge all participants to pay attention to the instructions issued by the police as well as the inspectors of the organizer in taking part in the public order event on the coming Sunday. I would now hand over to Mr. Kwok. To summarize, rioters and their supporters have recently targeted shopping malls in causing destruction, and these are merely violent acts with no reason or meaning. Even though the public order event that will take place on the 1st of January is supposedly peaceful, from past marches we could see that some violent protesters would exploit such opportunities in causing violence. Even though we issued a letter of no objection and the CHRF indicated that this will be a peaceful activity, I urge all participants to remain vigilant and pay attention to the conditions at the scene. If should anything happen, please follow the instructions of the police. The police warns rioters to stop disrupting the order of our community and inciting hate or even encouraging our young people to commit serious crimes. We would not tolerate any acts of violence, and we would put those to justice. We are going to see a new year soon, and once again I urge the public to say no to violence so that we can restore peace and order in Hong Kong.
Over the past 2 days, rioters used the excuse of shopping and inflicted extensive damage to various shopping centers in Sheung and Kowloon Bay. Recklessly and ruthlessly, master rioters vandalized shops and restaurants and harassed shoppers and diners, young and old. What's worse, in the small hours of yesterday, rioters hurled a petrol bomb at a targeted restaurant that they thought were unsupportive of the extremist view. all these are, no doubt, criminal acts that must not be condoned or glorified. Rioters are terrorizing the public with their childlike tactics. Whoever disagrees with their violence will be met with violence. They claim to be fighting for their right, but they're actually trampling others' right to enjoy peace and safety. They claim to be fighting for freedom, but they're depriving others of their freedom to express dissenting views. They claim to be fighting for justice, but they are taking justice into their own hands. The police strongly condemn all these unlawful and immoral acts of rioters. To prevent history from repeating itself, we have maintained a very close communication with the organizer of a major public event to be held on Hong Kong Island on the 1st of January. We always respect citizens' freedom of speech and rights to assembly. Meanwhile, we are also duty-bound to maintain law and order. We appeal to the organizer and all participants to remain rational and peaceful during the public event. Public safety should be the top priority. Over the weekend, during our arrest operation, we arrested a large number of youngsters and are very alarmed that some criminals incite youngsters to commit crime. We have even come across cases where teachers lead students in criminal acts. On 27th of December, 3 teenagers aged below 14 were found throwing objects from a balcony onto the ground in a residential building in Sham Shui Po. They even had folding knife and loaded air shotgun in their possession. This showed the spreading of lawlessness among youngsters who are impressionable and easily misguided by criminals. In response, the police maintained close communication with different community service groups to provide assistance to our youngsters. For example, the police participated in the Community Support Service Scheme run by the Social Welfare Department and the NGO. The police will refer underage arrested persons to the department and NGO given they and their guardian have given consent. They will provide professional support and counseling services. Moving on to arrest figures, over the weekend, we arrested 34 people, consisting of 31 male and 3 females, aged between 13 and 50 years. Offences include unlawful assembly, loitering, and assaulting police officers. In terms of clarification, we are aware that one man told the press he received a letter from the police asking him to make a statement regarding a complaint against police within 30 days, or else the investigation will be curtailed. We would like to clarify such accusation is false. The letter was not regarding a complaint report, but another case involving the same person. Due to privacy concerns, I can't comment further, but I can assure you that this incident has nothing to do with the ongoing protest. We can assure you that we have a well-established mechanism to deal with campaign. Campaign against police office has no plan to terminate the investigation into the relevant campaign report. In conclusion, the year 2019 has almost come to an end. Hong Kong people had a bumpy year, where widespread rioting pushed the city to the brink of extreme danger. I believe most citizens are fed up with this ongoing social unrest and long for peace and stability. However, rioters have been putting their own interests above public interest, putting their own demand over the well-being of the whole population. It's high time we put an end to violence and restore social order in Hong Kong. On the first day of 2020, there will be a public procession expected to draw a large turnout. We appeal to the organizer and participants to remain calm and rational. Let us kickstart 2020 with peace and get Hong Kong back on the right track. Thank you.
嚟緊落嚟到問答嘅時間，K 寶。
Now, Cable TV. Good afternoon. Now, Mr. Kong was interviewed by us, he said that on the 21st of July, there was a group of people leading a group of protesters that sparked off the whole case. Can I clarify, what group of people were you referring to? Because today, a legislator came out to challenge whether by that group of people you were actually referring to him. So can you be more specific who you were referring to? And then about the Telford Plaza case, we saw there were people suspected to be plainclothes officers arresting people wearing masks on the scene. And then today at court there was one person charged with assaulting the police. But then on that day we didn't see that those people throwing iron nails or chanting slogans, but somehow they were just pushed to the wall and then they were searched. So how exactly did they assault the police? And then these people suspected to be plainclothes officers, they did not wear any warrant card, or they did not make known their identity during the arrest. So when police officers carried out their duties, are they required to wear their warrant card, or at least they should make known their identity? If they don't even do that, then people would not know if these really are police officers, and they may resist, and it's only natural for people to resist. And then how could that be a case of assaulting the police? And then on New Year's Day, in the afternoon, did you receive any application for assembly at Tamar Park? Thank you. On the interview, I'll ask Mr. Kong to deal with that. On the Telford Plaza case, it's already sub judice, so that's why you cannot say too much on that. For the third question about public gathering and procession on New Year's Day on Hong Kong Island, I will ask Mr. Zhang to take that question. Yes, this is a question from Cable TV. On that day I was interviewed by your colleagues. I answered many different questions during the interview. And what you quoted was just a small part of the entire interview. And what I said on the day was based on my observation from different media reports or footages, but that does not represent our conclusion on the case. We've stated repeatedly we condemn all violence committed in the case. For the July 21st case, the police carried out detailed investigation. We are still actually carrying out the investigation. In the process, we have arrested 37 people so far. 70 people have been prosecuted, and the relevant cases have been referred to the district court. And in the same incident, there were a few complaint cases lodged with the capital, and these cases are still under investigation. I think we have to wait till the conclusion of the investigation before the public will have a better picture of what actually happened. But as I said, for some cases, they've already been referred to the court, so I have nothing more to add. On another question, I cannot comment on individual cases, but from the Christmas holidays to now, the police entered various shopping malls to deal with different violent cases. Last week we mentioned that we sent the plainclothes officers into shopping mall. That was an effective means to prevent large-scale criminal activities. And you would see from the footages that every time when our plainclothes colleagues were to take action, they would make clear they were police. They would shout out loud. You could see that in the footages. Now, as to whether we could display our warrant card, well, we've repeated that point many times here. If our work is not to be affected, we would try to display our warrant card as soon as possible. But maybe there were people shouting, protesters shouting on the scene, or they had other motives. They demanded our colleagues to display their warrant card to obstruct the duties, or if our colleagues believe it's a reasonable request, then of course our colleagues will first focus on the troublemakers or people who've been arrested, because that's their first priority. And you could see from many different footages clearly that those people were plainclothes officers. But even after people were arrested, we could never see those people saying that they were police officers. Well, but that's how we do it mostly with plainclothes officers operation. It's like when we try to arrest drug dealers. Now we will our first priority is arrest, and we will tell those people clearly that we're the police, we are arresting you now. We make that very clear.
You asked about the arrangements at Edinburgh Place on New Year's Day. What about Tema Park? I have no information on hand. In terms of the 21st of July incident, sorry, since you asked a number of questions and you also followed on your questions, we would pass around to the next reporter. We want to allow time for all reporters to ask their questions. Next question, please. Now TV. I'm from Now TV. First of all, I'd like to know about the arrangements to seal off certain roads on New Year's Eve. This year, you are focusing on only Wan Chai and Central, but not in Tsim Sha Tsui. On Christmas Eve, no rocks were cordoned off, but still some people spilled out to the streets. And why will the police not cordon off those roads? Can Mr. Kong clarify why, with regards to the 21st of July, a group of people led another group of people into Yuen Long to make a scene or create trouble? Mr. Kong cited his observations. What kind of observations were they? Did anyone bring a group of people into Yuen Long Station? Can you be more specific? As for on the 28th at Kowloon Bay MTR station, there were reports indicating that some police officers were alleged to have taken photos of reporters, and the photos were uploaded to Instagram groups. Did the police find out whether this happened, or Telegram groups? Are police officers allowed to use their mobile phones to transmit such information, which is not for work purposes? As for the road arrangements, as with Christmas Eve, we would look at the actual flow of the crowds at that time. The situation this year is rather different compared with past years. Very often, the destructive acts are committed on short notice, and that's why we must be flexible in our deployment. It is not that we won't cordon off any roads. We would assess the actual conditions of the crowds on the day. We will also keep tabs on the intelligence on whether anyone would show up or commit any destruction at certain areas, and we would make immediate deployments. We would ensure adequate manpower to maintain order. We urge the public to pay attention to information disseminated by the police, and that way you can have a better idea of the arrangements on the day. We might make other arrangements on short notice on the day. We would not rule out such possibility. As for the Yuen Long incident, like Mr. Kong said, since criminal proceedings are underway over the incident and complaints were lodged against police officers, well, we have already disclosed the details that could be divulged, and we have nothing to add. There were news reports saying that photos were uploaded online after an incident at Kowloon Bay. we looked into the situation. According to that report, the photos uploaded to that social media platform were not uploaded by our police officers. From time to time, our frontline officers have to maintain communication with the command center in order to facilitate assessment and deployment of manpower. And as such, our frontline officers might be equipped with mobile phones or cameras to take photos at the site. But I stress that such photos are photographs of the overall environment instead of close-ups of any individuals. We understand that some of our officers took photos in Kowloon Bay, but photos were taken in order to facilitate communication with the command center. So there was no social media, nothing was uploaded to the social media account as alleged in the report. So I hope the media would report based on facts. They should not report unsubstantiated rumors, and in that case, we would clarify the untrue accusations. Next question, please, SCMP.
Just want to confirm want to follow up on the questions on Mr. Kong. You did not want to go further, but it was very important that could you categorically confirm that you are referring to lawmaker Mr. Lam Cheuk Ting when you are saying one should look at the broader picture that's by someone bringing a group of protesters. Can you confirm on these remarks? Also, just to clarify on the calling arrangement and the security arrangement on December, the New Year's Eve, as well as the march by the CHRF, is there any plans to specifically tighten the security measures, especially when to prevent what the police call some of our more violent protesters? Is there specific plans on that? And the last question is on the shops. Could you provide us on how many overall being arrested and how many being brought to court when they're charged, and whether this discrepancy in the number of prosecutions and arrested creates a question in you might have mistakenly arrested some onlookers or people just passers by. Is there, on a general principle, could you enlighten us on whether just standing by, shouting slogans, not refusing, not leaving as police orders, which are these automatically attracting a criminal offence at the same time? Thank you.
For the first question, I will ask Mr. Gong to give a reply, and then for the second part, the coordinating arrangement or security plan for the public possession on the 1st of January, as well as the New Year Eve, I will ask Mr. Zhang to supplement. But I would emphasize that actually we will definitely do a lot of intelligence gathering and do the risk assessment, and we will have operational plan in hand. But for the details, I will ask Mr. Zhang to deliver. And for the last part concerning the arrest and prosecution inside the shopping centers, I will ask Mr. Lee to elaborate.
Yeah, thanks. During that TV interview, actually I've answered many questions, and the part you mentioned was only one of the many questions I gave, one of the many answers I gave. Please do not take it out of context. As I said, you can't draw a conclusion from the certain snapshot that you see. Regarding the July 21st incident happened in Yuen Long, actually the police condemn any sort of violence and illegal acts. The police have launched full investigation into the case. So far, we have arrested 37 people and charged 7 of them. The case has already been transferred to the district court for proceeding. And also, the complaint against police office has been following up on the complaint report launched relating to the incident. Once the investigation is completed, the public will have a better understanding about the whole incident. as there is an ongoing criminal procedures, I have no further comments on the report. Thanks.
I think it's time to pass the time to the second speaker.
Referring to your question about our police measures for the 31st and the 1st of January, first of all, as Mr. Kwok has said, police will always do risk assessments prior to any events that take place, and we will continue to do risk assessment during the events. And before, based on the intelligence and the risk assessments, we do a very meticulous planning on how we should police certain events, and we will ensure that there are enough adequate police officers on the ground that can deal with incidents. At the same time, we make arrangements and liaison with the organizer for them to provide their marshals to assist us in policing events on the ground. So I don't have the liberty of disclosing our plan on how we deal with events. That's basically my answer. Thanks.
So about the arrest and the prosecution of offenders inside shopping mall. And first of all, I would like to explain a little bit about the process of the arrest and the prosecutions. It's not just only in the mall, but it's particularly important when arresting somebody else inside the shopping mall. First of all, we need evidence. The evidence is from the testimonial of the officers involved in the arrest, and also some independent witness. On this occasion, maybe the some of the shopkeepers or something like that, who may be the person we needed. And the second we needed is the video evidence. Say, for example, some from the open source, like all the taken by the reporter like yourself, and also the police video. And gather all this kind of information, we will compile the report and make it to the Department of Justice of course, with our recommendation of the charge. And you say I'm talking about this is quite it need to take some time. So we cannot compare the arrest figures and the people with taking the prosecution at this stage. But I can tell you that it very much depends on the evidence. And the reporter have asked a highlight of two incidents, two kind of activities, just shouting slogans, and also is just a passerby of an onlooker or something like that. But I can tell you that if it's a shouting slogan in a very disorderly manner, we can also prosecute the guys with the disorderly in the public place. It's under the public order ordinance. That's one of our options. Of course, it depends on the evidence and the behaviors of the culprits we arrest at this stage. Depends on the evidence again. And the second is a passerby, an onlooker, something like that. It's also have an offense, something like the assisting offenders. It's also take part in the riot. It's also taking part in the vandalism. So again, we need the independent witness and also all the video evidence before we laying any charge against the person we arrest. Okay, thank you.
Is there any figures?
Sorry?
Is there any figures?
As first I mentioned that because we take a long time from gather the evidence and needed the vetting from the Department of Justice before we lay the prosecution. Like for ordinary charges for these kind of things, we take months to do. So it's unfair for us to tell you that we arrest 10 and we prosecute 8. So the other 2 will be free forever. This is not the case. We need evidence. We need the time for the investigation. Thank you.
下一條。
I'd like to supplement that. Actually, it's time for us to say no to the violence. And as mentioned by Mr. Lee, we need evidence and the information from the public. And so we'd like to appeal to those, in particular those victims of the vandalism, to come forward and make a report to us so that we can bring the offender to justice. If any passerby or whatever, you got any video or photos, please report to us so that we can get more evidence to prosecute those arrested persons. Thank you.
下一條。港台。
Next question, RTHK. Thank you. I want to ask about the July 21st incident. Now, the police said you would not respond further. But then just now we heard the case is still under investigation. But while the case was under investigation, when Mr. Kong was interviewed by the cable TV, he made his own comments. So was that your personal views, or was it actually an interim conclusion of the investigation? How come you said something like that? Now, Mr. Lam Cheuk-ting, the Legislative Councillor, always agreed that there was a police officer called Yang Lai-kung. He suspected that he was one of the suspects in the July 21st case, but now he's been transferred to New Territories North region, and he will also be involved in the investigation of the July 21st incident. Could the police explain why there's such an arrangement? Now, can you ensure that the investigation will be fair? Now, about the public possession application of the Civil Human Rights Front, CHRF said at the press conference today that they hope the police will exercise restraint, that they won't do like the procession on the 8th of November. Before the procession even started, the police raised the black flag. So would you be making similar arrangement as for the November 8th procession? And then CHRF clarified that someone doctored their posters. There's nothing to do with them. Otherwise, they could be, suspected of inciting something. So now that they've clarified their position, does it mean that they would no longer be held criminally liable? You mean inciting about what? Incitement part is about the poster. Okay. Mr. Kong just now explained that about his interview with cable TV. We have nothing further to add. About the New Territories North investigation, Mr. Lee has some information for you, and then Mr. Zhang will tell you about the arrangement in relation to the CHRF procession. Now, on the posters, I would like to thank the organizer again. You might see online there's plenty of fake news and information circulating online. And so there's a screenshot circulating. We don't know who actually issued it, but then for that particular screenshot, it adopted a similar design of the same organizer, and the layout is similar. So if the organizer came out to clarify earlier, it would help the public. And then for those with ulterior motives, the little scheme wouldn't work. So this is important that there is clarification, so we are able to differentiate real news from fake news. Ms. Lee now. Perhaps there are two parts to my answer. First, is it because a police officer is accused, so then he can't work anymore? And then second part is about how we carry out criminal investigation, how precise it is. Now, first, coming back to when police officer being accused of any criminal offense, and then we take such accusation very seriously, but we have to look at the evidence to see whether there's sufficient evidence for actions to be taken. There could be series of action, for example, disciplinary action, or in more serious cases there may be arrest, and then there may be criminal investigation. Now, Superintendent Yao was the subject of an accusation, but there is no substantive evidence. So far, it remains an accusation. That's why we have not taken any disciplinary action against him. So he is still able to carry out his duties. As for his transfer, it's just a regular transfer. From time to time, we transfer officers to different posts. Now, the second part of my answer. Someone who's been the subject of accusation is put in a certain post. Does it mean that we can't get the work done? Now, first, with criminal investigation, it's not just up to any single individual. There are many monitoring the investigation, and there are many involved in the investigation. From time to time, there is need to give report on the progress of investigation. It's not possible that a single person could influence an entire investigation. Now, with any serious offense or even just with any investigation process, that's the standard we adopt, so you can rest assured. Thank you.
The RTHK asked about the CHRF. The first question was about the march on the 8th of November, and the second question was about a post published yesterday. First of all, on the 8th of December, I stress that the police has always respected the rights of the public in public processions and public meetings. We would provide assistance to facilitate peaceful events. On the 8th of December, during the march, near the end point of the march, a number of radical protesters deviated from the original route, and they hurled petrol bombs, and some people also started blocking roads. So for the sake of maintaining public safety, the police set a cordon line outside of the route of the march, and the intention was not to obstruct the peaceful march. As for the post you mentioned, today the CHRF convener explained at their press conference that that post was not published by them. So, like Mr. Kwok said, we thank them for making such clarification. But since such post was published, we could not rule out possible radical acts on the 1st of January by some people. So once again, I urge participants not to use any kind of violence whatsoever on the 1st of January, because violence would not solve any problems. If there is violence, the police would take staunch enforcement action. Last two questions. RTHK 3.
Just to follow up on the Kowloon Bay MTR station incident, where a riot officer was holding his phone towards a group of reporters, and then a picture of the reporters was uploaded to a public chat group on Telegram. So I know that you answered the question in Chinese. Could you also explain in English? Did you look into this incident? So if the colleague was using his private phone to take such a photo, was it actually violating your own rules? And also, my second question concerns the January 1st march. So you said that you will facilitate, you will maintain law and order together with the CHRF marshals. And could you explain what would you do if there was some kind of violent incidents happening again? Thank you.
So I will first handle the first part of the questions regarding the possession. I will pass it to Mr. Zhang. As regard the media report concerning the uploading of photo to the social media, we conduct the investigation and confirming that a low police officer uploading those so-called reporter or protesters' photos onto the social internet or social media. And in fact, from time to time, our officer, front officer, need to maintain close liaison and communication with the command center. And every now and then, they may need to report the actual incident on the ground. They may take some photo or take some video using a mobile phone or video recorder to let the command center know what's happening on the ground, so that they could deploy resources to reinforce our colleagues. So that's the normal practice. But I would like to emphasize that they won't. When they take photo, they're not targeting any specific person. They're taking an overview of the environment, so that the command center will know what's happening. And as I mentioned in Cantonese, for that particular officer on duty on that day, Actually, he has no that particular social media account, so we can't see any possibility that he will be able to upload those photos. And in fact, they didn't take any photo targeting specific persons. So for this kind of false allegation or fake news, I would like to clarify here that false and it's not true. So I now pass on to Mr. Zhang.
Regarding your question as to what police measures will be in case there is violence, as I've mentioned before, that we will make assessments, risk assessments continuously during the before and during the event, and if the circumstances is that there is violence, we other than risk assessments, we keep liaison. We will keep constant liaison with the marshals, and as far as possible, we will rely, partly, on the marshals to do their part to facilitate and help the police to ask people, because of the prevalent situation where violence may cause injury to anybody, we might need to stop that procession or public meeting, and would like the marshals to help along and ask the peaceful participants to leave the area which is affected as fast as possible. And regarding the violence, police will make warnings as much as possible if the situation allows us, and it would be our last resort to engage in the force that we are allowed to use in commensurate with the prevailing situation. That would be our answer. Thank you.
最後一條，明報。
Last question, Ming Pao, please. I have 3 questions. First, at Kowloon Bay, a journalist was photographed, and Mr. Kwok said there was an accusation. The accusation that a police officer uploaded a photo to Telegram was untrue. But did other police officers or officers at the police center or at the command center circulate and upload this photo subsequently? And in the coming New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, there are a number of public order events. Some district councillors found that wire nets were installed at many flyovers on Hong Kong Island. Did the police instruct the installation of such fences at different areas? And in Mr. Kong's interview with cable TV, since the police knew that the investigations on the 21st July incident are yet to be completed, Mr. Kong commented on the 21st of July incident nonetheless. So was such act irresponsible? As for the Kowloon Bay incident, there are a lot of untrue rumors or allegations that are unsubstantiated. If you browse social media, you can see a lot of photos. If you take one of them and say that, or claim that it was uploaded by the police, it would be very hard to investigate or substantiate. And if you wish to lodge a complaint, you may do so with CAPO. But as of now, we did not see that any of our officers uploaded this photo. As for the fences installed on flyovers, I would defer to Mr. Wong. The police did not request other government departments to install wire fences. But I believe that's in light of the hurling of objects from flyovers in the past, such move might be a good safety measure. We certainly welcome any such measures which would help with our law enforcement. District councillors are important stakeholders in our community, and their job is to ensure safety and order in the community. We hope that the incoming district councillors would work closely with the police, and I'm sure the community has a collective responsibility to maintain order. So by taking out appropriate measures, we can ensure safety, including road safety for the community. As for the TV interview, the incident concerned involves ongoing criminal proceedings and complaints against police officers. We have no more information to add at this stage. Upon the completion of the investigation, we would see more details. This is the end of the press conference. Thank you.